and any hope of me ever wanting to play it.
Me too.
I had a choice in 5th grade, like, what instrument do you want to play? And I'm like, not the clarinet. My question, however, is, personally for me, growing up watching SpongeBob, my favorite episodes were the older ones compared to the newer ones. And I wanted to know, like, do you prefer the older episodes to the newer ones?
Now, that's a good question, because I've heard this comment several times, and I'm wondering, is the reason you would, because I'm going to ask you, I'm going to critique you, or ask you to critique this, what's the difference in the early episodes and the ones that you're talking about? How did they differ? Because it could be because you experienced the early episodes when you were at a much younger age, and animation was a different animal to you than when you got older and smarter and wiser, and more receptive. So I'm just wondering, what is the real difference? All shows have evolution. The writers come and go, and sometimes the new writers are in keeping with what made the initial show good, and sometimes they're not. You get away from that, and then you get back to it a little bit later when you realize you've made a mistake. So, do you have any idea about what the initial shows were that gave you that comment?
I honestly thought they were more clever, like, funnier the way they went on. Like, with the episode where they got stranded in the forest and the plane dropped a bunch of supplies and the conch shell, ringing any bells? I'm not good with names.
Yeah.
Okay, that, I loved it. It was, I wanted to say beautiful, but genius for me. And I just thought they were more clever than, like, the newer episodes with, like, HowPlankton does stuff, all of that jazz.
Yeah, I'll have to say, I think one of the things that I like about the initial episodes, and I'm answering my own question here, was they would do things called an abstraction, where they would take a little action and repeat it over and over and over again until it became funny, like with SpongeBob's laughter or something over and over. And it was very simple, not a whole lot of dialogue. And the poor writers, as they do in lots of things, they get wordy, and it becomes a sitcom after a while, and it's not indicative of what a real cartoon is, which is this visual and sound and voice sort of quality. Plankton's a great example of that. I don't mean to mean-mouth him, but when Plankton's in an episode, he's very verbose. I mean, it's all him talking the entire time, and although it's funny, it's not what cartoons are about. You don't even have to have a cartoon; it could be a live action. And so my favorite thing, and I think this is what you might be referring to, is that simplicity, that abstraction that I just mentioned, that I think is absolutely the essence of SpongeBob, and that's what we had in the initial episodes. So thank you for helping me answer your question.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
I wondered about your work day, and does your throat ever get sore?
Yes, it does. And unfortunately, if some of you have seen in the first day here, people will come and say, will you do a phone message for me, which I eagerly do. But yesterday, so many people were doing that, and it's so noisy there that you have to project on, and it wrecked the throat, so I had to actually say, well, I have to charge you a couple of dollars for this now. Yeah, it does. It's momentary actions do not wreck the voice. I mean, I can scream for 4 hours and have no problem, but when I have to get to do it for like 8 hours, as you would imagine, it takes its toll. So yeah, it's like any other thing. It's the muscle. It gets tired.
Hi.
Hi.
Because I've never heard another one like it, I would like to know how you came up with Squidward's laugh.
Well, Stephen Hilbert, when we were formulating that laugh, he said, "Okay, now we're gonna scrunch up the nose rhythmically when we do this." And as you see, they do that song. And the thing that's crucial about that, it has to end off key. So we said, no, that's it. Oh, Bill Hop.
Oh, yes, sir. Seeing that you never actually had to memorize the campfire song, there was another thing that you once recited, and I was wondering, and you can shorten it if need be, if you could tell us all the famous tale of the
Hash slinging slash.
slinging slasher. The dash slinging slasher? No, the hash slinging slasher. The hash, yes, the hash slinging slasher. Let's see, the lights would flicker on, and then the phone would ring, and nobody's there. And then there will be a knock at the door, and then the hash-slinging slasher will come in. The slash-slinging, not the hash-slinging slasher! And that's about as much I all remember about it.
That's also one of my favorite episodes I forgot to mention, because at the end there's this total non sequitur when they bring in the still of Nosferatu. Where the ding dong did they get that?
Hello. I was wondering if there are other cartoons on television that you really love.
Yeah, well, they're not really currently on right now, but I respect. Remember the Cow and Chicken? This is a wonderful example of a virtuoso of animation actor, Charlie Adler. He's done many, many things, but Charlie Adler was all those characters. And as you recall, they were in completely distinct characters, and he melded from one to the other so quickly and so effortlessly, it's almost like he could overlap himself when he was doing the episodes. I admired that. Fairly Odd Parents. A little show called SpongeBob SquarePants, and that's about all I watch. I don't really watch much cartoons anymore. If there's a cartoon on, I'm going to watch SpongeBob just to see my episode. Not that I'm egotistical.
One more question for you. Has Squidward ever looked different? Like, has he ever had pants, or has he evolved since you took on the role?
He doesn't have pants. Okay, I'm out of here. It's just too creepy now. He evolved before the pilot came to be. He actually went through a great different changes. He looked like an actual squid for a while, and then of course he realized he's an octopus, not a squid. And the reason it's called Squidward is that Octoword just didn't cut it. But yeah, I wish I could describe all the different permutations that I saw that he went through. All the characters went through a great deal of change before they settled the final design. The voice, all of our voices have gone through a little bit of evolution, which is natural. When I first started out, I was very monotone, that kind of thing, and then we began to explore all the different emotional expressions, and it became actually a very naturalistic, relatively speaking, presentation by me. I got to be sarcastic. How did I ever, why did I ever get stuck with such loser neighbors? And then I go apoplectic every so often, and it's really cathartic. You know, it's great psychological benefit for me just to do the character.
Oh, good grief.
Excuse me, I'm in the middle of a panel right now with a couple of hundred people here, and I don't like being interrupted. Please go away. That's my son.
So, do you have any least favorite episodes? And if not, what was the most difficult, or one of the most difficult for you to do?
Yes, my least favorite episodes, absolute least favorite episodes, are ones that I'm not in. I just don't understand how they can possibly do an episode without Squidward. Nothing has ever been difficult. Ever so often the screaming does wear on. Well, I'll tell you, one time we had an episode where I was a little under the weather. And I always tell people in my industry can work with a broken leg, but we can't work with a stubby nose. And we did the entire episode, which was very heavy in me, and no one caught it until it was over. And then they came back next day and said, we got to do it again. And I said, you didn't hear that? Yeah. So, you know, it's one of those things that they just didn't catch. But having to do a tough episode over, that's the only negative experience I ever had.
Hi there.
Hi.
So, does your family turn the show on? Is it on at your house a lot? Are your kids little? Did they grow up with it? How did that work out for your family?
My son and my grandson live in Arkansas, and they watch it all the time. And the cool thing about sometimes when a kid is like 3 years old, they don't quite make the connection between a human being doing it and the cartoon character. But my grandson caught on at about 2.5, and he started doing Squidward, and he's very good at it.
So maybe he's inherited your voice.
I think he's, like they say, talent, like the gout, tends to skip a generation. And my son is a fine guy. He's just not that terribly creative. But my grandson is a pistol. He's a chip off the old block.
Does it ever get on their nerves that the voice? Do you ever do it at home to be, for fun at home? It seems like when you talk, sometimes I catch it when you're just being natural in your voice, like I said to you earlier. And I said, did you notice that? And because yesterday when you threw it out at me, I thought, but it was just natural. So there's something, did that become part of, through the time of doing it, do you ever hear that in your own voice and notice, gee, I just sounded like Squidward, and that was really Roger?
Yeah, well, like as you said, it's very close to my natural voice. And once I just put it up a little bit, just a little, like anybody else would if they're using common inflection, it instantly falls into Squidward. In fact, we're required in shows to do multiple characters. You do a main character, then you do a couple of extra characters. And when I'm looking to try to define those other characters, initially, Steven would say, no, it sounds like Squidward. So I really had to go far afield to find things that were different than Squidward. And now I can do it now because I know where that voice is. But yeah, it's very easy to fall into it, especially during the conventions here because I'm doing the voice so often. I turned to my associate and went, I'm starting to sound like this constantly now. It's just second nature. So, yes, I do. Oh, I did it again. Sorry.
Well, we love it.
Hello.
Hi.
Just want to say I've loved this show since I was like 11 or so. I'm 23 now. When I first saw it, previous word I thought it was a mistake, but I actually think it's great. And I still think it's funny, and I find it very witty. And I was wondering, what's the process you guys go through to make it so witty? Because there's some jokes in there, but as an adult, I really think are hilarious. Like I lose track of his reference, I think, in one episode, and I just love that.
Yeah, we have a wonderful way of recording the episodes. Say we're doing like 2 pages at a time. We'll do 2 pages, 2 takes, 2 run-throughs of that exactly the way the writers do it, trying to get it the best we can. And then we have what we call the crazy take, which is we can do anything we want to do. Sometimes we do a little, off-color things just to amuse ourselves. But oftentimes those improvisations make their way into the show. And that's wonderfully liberating because you're giving them what they called for, but now you can do whatever you really want to do with it. And it's an absolutely wonderful way of working. We used to just do whatever we wanted, and then the director would come back and say, we need to do this as written, please. And so now it's structured that way, and it just brings out the best in all of us.
Hello again. I was wondering, what was it like working with Ernest and Conway? Such great.
Golly, it was absolutely. Well, see, I'm older, and Tim Conway on the TV shows that he did was actually kind of a role model for me. You haven't seen my stage work, but I tend to do that sad sack of physicality that Tim was known for. And then in the episode that Squidward and Tim actually had, the only interaction they ever had, that was joy to me because we were doing takes to each other. And it was just absolutely wonderful. And Ernest, for those of you that know him, he's done so many wonderful, serious roles and scary roles like the Emperor of the North and other such things. But McHale's Navy, the TV show, where he was this jovial, just wonderful guy, that's his personality. And he was absolutely wonderful as a person. We all hated to lose him. Funny thing was, I worked on the movie Escape from New York. And if you're familiar with it, have you ever seen the film? Well, when you first see the Ernest Borgnine for the first time, he's in this dilapidated theater watching a presentation on stage of the convicts on stage, and they're all in drag. Well, I'm one of those people that's in drag. And I mentioned that to him, that we were in the same movie, in the same scene, but not acting together. And his recognition of that moment, he just turned into that big Ernest Borgnine grin and gave me this big hug. And it was one of those things that I'll remember the rest of my life. He was just a teddy bear of another guy. And sharp as a tack up to the end. Love it. We haven't replaced him yet as far as Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, so hopefully we can continue those two characters. But he was a gem.
Hey, I just want to say Bold and Brash is my favorite Squidward painting.
I call this bold and brash.
And then,
More like belongs in the trash. But I wanted to ask about the Krusty Krab pizza episode where at the end, how Squidward kind of stands up for SpongeBob. Do you think that Squidward has a soft spot for SpongeBob?
if deep down, when push comes to shove, there's several episodes where when Squidward thinks he has gone a little too far and he apologizes, or you see the soft side that Squidward has. By and large, no, it ain't gonna happen. It's just like Krabby Patties, he denies he likes them, but when push comes to shove, he really does like them.
Hi. So there are a lot of characters where their age is really obvious, like Mr. Krabs, he's obviously like a middle-aged man, and Pearl is obviously a teenager. But characters like SpongeBob and Patrick and Squidward are kind of hard to interpret because they're such man-children.
That's right,
Do you have any guess on how old they actually are? Because I'm assuming they're all the same age range.
Yeah, the basic concept of SpongeBob was innocence and optimism. And so he has the childlike qualities because he goes to Glove World and he loves jellyfishing and he plays quite a lot. And yet when he stays up late, he develops a 5 o'clock shadow. And when he goes out to gorge himself on ice cream, it's like he's getting drunk. Like in the movie, Where? So it's a hybrid age thing, just like his voice can occasionally take on a heroic thing, whereas normally he's a very childlike sound. So we have latitude. There is no real specific. They are children, but they have adult qualities also. So that's the best I can do for the age bracket.
Hey, I just want to say I absolutely love the Krusty Krab pizza episode, especially that part where he defends SpongeBob, and also love when Squidward finds out he loves Krab Patties. But I did want to find out, aside from maybe some of the main characters, who is your favorite character in the show aside from Squidward?
Well, aside from his verbosity, I think Plankton is a pretty interesting character. Of course, SpongeBob, he's so versatile, and gosh, I'm just so involved with my guy that I couldn't change. Although everybody in the show can do everybody else's characters. I would love to do an episode where we switch everything. So, yeah, I just love everybody. We all have our own little niche. So, I'm into my guy.
Hello. Okay, so basically I'm just wondering, so we covered your least favorite episodes and your favorite episodes, but are there any episodes that you think are just downright strange? Like, what are the writers doing when they write this?
Well, let's see. We've had these surreal episodes where it's something from science fiction or the Twilight Zone, basically. That's weird. It wasn't bad weird, it was just weird. When we get to, like I say, the sitcom quality, that loses its interest to me. It has to be things that are indicative and exclusive of cartoondom. But I don't know.
Now, to add on to that, because Squidward has a lot of kind of one-liners that he comes up with. Have you ever looked at your script and thought, gosh, I wish I thought of that first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love it when he has one-liners. In fact, they distilled his sarcasm and just disdain for the insanity around him in a recent episode. Some craziness was happening over here. They cut back to Krabs and Squidward, and all Squidward says is, hate. How perfectly simplistic, wonderful, just cuts to the chase.
Crab's daughter is a whale?
Okay. You're delving into the L word now, the word logic. I would point out that we have campfires, beaches, thunderstorms, and all the fish walk. So, I'm not too alarmed with the whale thing.
Yes, do you know the Krabby Patty secret formula? And also, did you finish those errands?
No, I had to finish those errands!
People have come to my table and said that to me.
So I know in the show Squidward does not really like SpongeBob, but do you secretly like him?
Yeah, got to say, deep down, he does have a little affinity towards him, but he just doesn't want to show it.
Yeah, my favorite episode was Enchanted Tiki Dreams.
Oh yeah, we won an award for that song.
Yeah. But my question is, are you a bigger fan of the 7, 11, or 22-minute episode format? I mean, it takes a lot of cleverness to make a story work in 7 or 11 minutes, but...
Absolutely. What we have right now, in every half an hour, as you know, there's 2 11-minute cartoons. And those 11-minute cartoons are reminiscent of the old Looney Tunes cartoons. I don't see anybody here old enough, but when you go to a movie years ago, before the previews, you'd see a cartoon. And quite oftentimes it was a Looney Tunes cartoon. And I miss that particular length. Once you get to a half an hour, and especially an hour, you become too much of a narrative, too much of a long screenplay sort of thing. Cartoons are supposed to be in and out, and comedy, boom, and you're on to something else. And that's the way we do it in this show, and I think it's a stroke of genius to go back to that format, because all of the cartoons on the air, and for the last several years, are half-hour cartoons. You come back from a commercial, and it's still the same story. Not so with SpongeBob. So, 11.
Hello, when did you know SpongeBob would be this big?
I guess it was about 2 years into the show. I mean, we did the pilot, we aired the pilot. I thought it was okay, I said, okay, well, I'll just go on to something else. And about 2 years later, I was in the grocery store, and I casually mentioned to somebody that I worked on this show, and their eyes get big, and they're like, wow, you worked on that show? And that's the first time that I realized that we were hip. We were cool, and I don't know why that happened, but it did happen. It was just a fact. The Beatles, the right group at the right time, and our show was the right group, the right cartoon for the right time. So it was a total surprise to me, at least. I have to say that, and it's been quite a ride, I have to say.
I've been watching the show for a while, and just an episode that really stood out to me was the Sailor Mouth episode. I mean, that's just one of my favorite episodes, because they're pretty much just cursing on it. They're flipping it out, and it's not SpongeBob, so was that just like an episode that was fun?
No, during that episode, Mr. Krabs goes on a tear also. And if next time you see that episode, just remember that Mr. Krabs wasn't pausing while they put the porpoise sound in there. Clancy Brown was cussing up a storm. And to me, a blue streak of the worst type of cussing you could ever imagine. And I know that those takes are held somewhere, and I'm going to hear them again. You'll regard that episode differently next time you hear it.
Hi, I have 2 kind of like short questions. One of them is, I've heard, or I read somewhere on the internet, that the My Leg guy like has a family and like a name and like a backstory.
Wow.
Do you know anything about the My Leg guy?
That's Mr. Lawrence, the guy that plays Plankton. He's always out there, and he's always the one that adds something to the end. He's a buttoner, as we say. Blah 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 blah. My leg. And it just stuck. But I'm not aware of a backstory on that one. I'm going to have to go in and research that for you, though.
Okay, and the other one is the episode where Squidward moves away to like the colony of like a bunch of Squidwards.
Squidville.
Yeah. How did you feel about that episode? Did you like read the script and you were like, yes, it's all me, or were you like, oh my god, it's all me?
No, I'm always anxious when I'm what we say heavy in an episode, And it was a great responsibility because you have to carry that episode for that particular time. But it was written so nicely. And actually, one of my favorite things when Sponge and Pat go to the gates and try to get in, and they finally get the door to open, and SpongeBob says, "We're in!" And Patrick goes, "Yang!" Shoing! What did that mean? It didn't have to mean anything, it was a non sequitur. But Patrick has this wonderful non sequitur line, so it's great. Yeah, it was a great episode, and when he was playing with the leaf blower, when he ridiculed SpongeBob for having fun with that, and after he's bored with the Squidville people, he sits next to him on the park bench and he takes it, turns it off, and he goes, "Fat." And for some reason they have that little fat. It's just funny to me. Thank you. Well, thank you all. Oh, one more.
Speaking of Squidville, have you ever tried canned bread? I've been informed that it's an actual thing.
I cornered the market. No one can buy it anymore. I have a combination product I'm offering, canned bread with interpretive dance. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Oh, you have another question here?
Can you dance like Squidward?
You'll have to go to YouTube, because the tape's here. But at the InvaderCon convention, someone asked that question, and I do an interpretive dance, Squidward's interpretive dance. So check it out on YouTube, and you'll see it. This is quite... Again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. And I'm very surprised that so many people showed up for this one idiot up here talking.
Yes.
I realized that wasn't a standing ovation, just getting up to leave. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow.